Hey everyone. So I'm trying to cover a big topic in a very short amount of time, so we'll see how I do. But in the next 14-15 minutes, I'm going to talk a bit about something called the Quorum Model, which is a type of business operating system for cooperatively organized and community-based organizations. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about Quorum One, that's the organization behind the Quorum Model, our framework for understanding professional ethics and empowerment. Then I'll talk a bit about the role that badges play within the Quorum Model, the sort of key to the structure. And then hopefully, if we got time, I'll talk about one or two of the tools that we're building and how they use badges. I think this is, a lot of folks have been talking about open recognition and how do we use badges and digital credentials to open up the aspects of recognition, like on the learning side. And so I think what I want to talk about in this presentation is kind of the other side of that. Once we have badges, once we have open recognition, if we think of those as a key, what's the lock that you put that key into? And one of the things that I've seen working with badges for the last decade, or better part of a decade, I suppose, is that the way that our companies and our organizations are structured is not really set up to make great use of open recognition. And so this is an exploration of that. So first, just a bit about me. I'm currently leading 3 organizations. So Quorum One, which is the one we'll talk about in a minute. I'm also one of the 2 co-founders of Badgelist, which is one of the sort of OG open badge issuing platforms. So that's how I'm connected to this circle. And then finally, I've got another startup that split off from Badgelist a couple of years back called Nova, where we're creating data transformation technology to automate business systems integrations, particularly for the purposes of awarding digital credentials at scale. So the kind of unifying factor for all of my work is really looking for practical applications of new models of democratic systems and economic and market-based systems. I've always been inspired by these big picture ideas that a lot of us in this community have, and I'm looking for, okay, how do we actually apply those operationally within companies, within governments, within organizations, on a very, very practical level. So a bit about Quorum One. So Quorum One is it's a young organization. We've actually only been legally incorporated for 14 months, but we're a professional collective, like a worker collective of professionals in and around the technology consulting space. We're cooperatively organized, and essentially what Quorum does is brings together 4 different things. We are a professional network of peers and experts helping each other and supporting each other. We are a full-service consultancy, building out sort of business systems, building business apps and stuff like that for our clients. We're also what I call a working academy, which is kind of that combination I've heard other folks talk about of bringing together applied work, kind of a modern take on the apprenticeship model, applied work with learning. And then finally, we are a startup incubator. So we have a number of products, kind of SaaS products and things that we're either using internally or developing for our clients those are particularly useful for using as like a training projects and stuff for folks earlier in their careers. So like I said, we're 14 months old, but we've been growing very fast. We've got about 70 members now, around 20 clients, and about a 940% growth rate in the first year. So we'll see how the second year shapes up. But for Quorum, the unifying force is learning. Every single person who's joined Quorum One so far is really excited about learning. They love teaching other people. They love kind of always being at that cutting edge of their profession, pushing forward and being in that constant state of infinite upskilling. Cool. So a big part of what Quorum One does is develop this thing that we call the Quorum Model. The Quorum Model is really an umbrella term. It's not like one thing. It's an umbrella term for all of the ideas and concepts for how to run decentralized, cooperative, community-based organizations, companies, corporations, whatever you want to call them. And so it really is a basket of ideas and processes and tools that is getting bigger as more people and organizations join Quorum. So it's very much a work in progress. It is not something that is, this isn't a summary of some perfectly polished model. It's actively being iterated, tested, and expanded within Quorum as we use it for our own internal operations, but also within some of our member organizations. Oh yeah, and it's particularly good for organizations that sort of meet this criteria. Eventually, hopefully it'll work for all types of organizations, but for now it really works best for organizations where there's some level of importance of expertise. So it's not just like a community of random people on the internet arguing about Game of Thrones or something. It's, there's like, right, expertise is a critical piece, although perhaps even in that example, expertise would matter. Flexibility is needed, so it's probably not like everybody's like a full-time employee of a company working 40 hours a week. The idea is that some people will put in a lot of effort, some people will put in very little effort, and you need to make that fair. Trust. We're optimizing for creating a high trust environment. And then finally, like creativity is something that you actually want. In some cases, you don't want creativity, so this wouldn't be a good model for that. So before we kind of delve further into this, I just want to take a step back and talk about professional empowerment. So what is professional empowerment? From Quorum's perspective, kind of the framework we use is that empowering someone professionally, empowering an individual professionally, is about providing them with autonomy, growth, wealth, and co-mentorship. So autonomy is obviously like a really, really key one. That's all about choice. Giving individuals the opportunity to exercise and grow and practice their choices as an individual agent, giving them creative control. Growth is also driven largely by the individual. Growth is the ongoing ability to expand our skills and expertise. Wealth is obviously like cash money, but it's also other things. Building equity in a company or in a community, expanding your network, and other forms of sort of passive value add. And then finally, co-mentorship, the ability to get guided and supported by your peers and the opportunity to do the same for them. So looking at this, when we ask what is an ethical organization, for us, we have a really simple answer, which is an ethical organization is an organization which empowers its members professionally, as well as its broader ecosystems. So you could, by the way, take this framework and apply it to like a sustainability or like environmental ecosystems that you might touch on. But if you focus this on a particular person, essentially through this frame, an ethical organization is one which truly maximizes the autonomy of its members. That means it actually builds in the idea that people will be autonomous into every aspect of its operations, into its contracts, into its compensation models, everywhere. It's working to accelerate the growth of its members. So the goal of an ethical organization in this frame is to make sure that its members are able to grow faster within the organization than they would be able to outside of the organization. Obviously, generating wealth is always important, and then building connection. More connection is more better. It's about really fostering more connections between more of the members within the organization. So I'm not going to talk about this too much because of time, but just sort of when talking about what is a Quorum model, what is or decentralized cooperative organizations, I always want to kind of touch a bit on the opposite. And so command and control is a great term for kind of the opposite of what we're talking about here. And unfortunately, this is sort of the default. When most legal templates that you use to incorporate a new business, most of the kind of default ideas that a lot of us have when we go to start a new group, kind of all center around an org chart this idea that there are fixed roles, and each person will take one of those roles, and there's a hierarchy of reporting structures. And so that leads to all kinds of problems that I won't delve into. But this is sort of the enemy, I guess. So coming back to the model itself, like I've said, the Quorum Model is a big bundle of tools, structures, designs, and it covers every aspect of technical business operations. So it basically is way too complicated to cover in 15 minutes. So let's just delve in on badges and how badges play a role in this organization, in this organizational structure. So there are two foundational, if the Quorum Model is basically a big toolbox, there's kind of two building blocks that are at the core of it. One of them definitely is badges. I think everybody's familiar with that one. But there's this other one that I just want to allude to, which is community currency. Part of what I see is that sometimes we tend to overload badges. And so in this model, we sort of pull apart. Like the badges are the structure, represent the being state, and a community currency represents the action and the doing state. So what that means is roles and structures within the organization are represented with badges, but rewarding people, incentivizing people for activities that they engage in is all run with a community currency that in Quorum One we call Q credits. So we're going to dive into badges a little bit more. So let's talk about one example. I've got another one in here, but we won't have time to talk about it. So the one example that we'll talk about to get specific of like, okay, so how are badges built into this model? So this is essentially a depiction of the structure of Quorum itself. So within the Quorum Model, a company or organization is made up of different quorums, or you could call them sub-quorums. So you might have one for sales, one for marketing, business development, one for a project that you're leading. And the idea is that each quorum is made up of a circle of members in the center, surrounded by concentric layers of leadership. So inside, you got the members. The next level out, you have the organizers who are supporting the members, providing structure and leadership. And then the outermost layer there is the quorum point, and that's the primary leader of that part of the organization. You want to cycle that point regularly. And the key thing is that each layer here is controlled by a badge. So that badge documents all the requirements for that type of leadership, for membership in that quorum. It also contains built-in training materials for onboarding people, the evaluation process. And the key thing is that holding that badge directly confers the status of that role within the organization. This isn't like go through the training, start doing the role, and then later on we're going to award you a badge. The badge is the structure. The badge directly conveys that. So if we zoom out, this is what it's like each one of these little circles is one of those circles on the previous slide. So if we zoom out, this is like what the organization looks like. Anybody familiar with sociocracy or holacracy will find some of these ideas, concepts familiar. But the idea is that the structure of an organization in the Quorum Model evolves organically through the emergence and collapse of subquorums. Anybody can create a quorum by just creating two badges. A badge that says this is what it takes to be a member, a badge that says this is what it takes to be the point. And so that act of creating those badges, essentially the fact that badges drive them establishes a self-documenting structure. And by linking those badges together, we can provide personalized growth pathways that are easily discoverable. So I'll skip, I only got a couple minutes left. Yep. Do I?
Yes.
Don't I have to stop at 5?
No, we reduced a bit for Suzanne spoke, so she...
Okay. Okay, great. All right. We're like 5 minutes? 2 minutes? 1?
At least 5.
Okay, sure. All right, well, we'll touch base on the second example as well then. But the idea within this is that members can belong to many different quorums within the organization based on their skills, based on their interests, based on their availability, right? So this is going to, our version of an org chart, right? Obviously, it's a little more chaotic, right? But it's also more flexible, and it offers more opportunities for leadership, more touch points. So We'll talk about the second example is a little more complicated. Like you can put these slides up somewhere later. But essentially, the other thing I wanted to talk about is we have a tool called the work stream. What this is an internal marketplace for democratically managing work. It's one place where all requests within the organization can go. Requests get opened up and attached to different streams. It essentially provides, and then that community currency, the Q credits, can be linked to individual recs. It essentially is like a decentralized consensus engine for what needs to be done and when. So that's the high level. We won't kind of go too far into the specifics, but the key aspect is that badges are the structure, right? So all roles and permissions within this workstream application, which is the hub of everything that gets done, all roles and permissions within that software are actually controlled with badges. So who has the ability to add new users? Who has the ability to administrate the system? Who has the ability to sort of make destructive changes? All of that is controlled with badges. Those badges can be linked together, saying, oh, this badge has a prerequisite for that, organically. So this is all about who can run things within individual streams. That's all controlled with badges. And then new streams are created by creating those badges. Again, so by doing that, it allows structure to emerge organically without top-down control. Because this is all about bottom-up instead of top-down. So if we kind of take a step back from all of this, how can badges be used to create professional empowerment within organizations? Obviously, I've gone into two specific examples. We got lots of other examples of how we're using badges, particularly in combination with Q credits with this community currency. But at a big picture, I think at the core, the one thing I want to get across is that if we want to reimagine, if we really want to achieve the beautiful visions of open recognition that we have, we need to start thinking more intently about what is a company? What is a job? We talk about education to employment pathways. What is employment? And is employment, as we think of it now, really the goal? Or is the goal to have a more open form of participation in the work that we're doing as part of our professional lives? And so in order to do that, my key recommendation is that badges should be the structure. They should be deeply integrated in. Badges should not be, oh, you get these badges and then you can apply for a job and get that. No, the parts of the organization emerge when somebody creates the badge, and earning that badge makes you a part of that organization. Badges are the bones. Badges are the structure. When you do that, that unlocks these areas. It unlocks greater autonomy, because it encourages people to have multiple roles, it encourages more experimentation, and it really enables bottom-up organizational structures in a way that's very tough to do with traditional org charts. The fact that all these processes are self-documenting makes them very easy to discover. And all that linking means that people can navigate and find their own way. High-value expertise ends up being surrounded by a network of peers ready to train people and onboard the next generation of folks. And then finally, this co-mentorship thing, this idea of connection. By letting anybody in an organization create a badge or create a new pathway, it creates more opportunities for connection and more opportunities for trust. So that's it. I think for anybody who's interested in this space, a few things that we're looking for right now. One is collaborators interested in non-hierarchical organizations. Anybody and everybody who has ideas or contributions to make in this space, we're inviting to come in and participate. We're always looking for clients who need help with business systems engineering projects, particularly Salesforce development. That's what pays the bills right now, so we're always looking for more money to pay the bills. Also, organizations interested in trying out one or more parts of the Quorum model, and then also researchers who are interested in or have ideas for helping to measure the impact of this as we bring this model into other organizations. That's all I got.
Have time for questions.
I'm not allowed to ask.
No, you can. I thought I had a question. Okay, so my question is, if these are for if small organizations want to join but already have an existing structure, that's what I want. Then what?
That's, I think the key aspect of this model is trying to fuzz the barrier between who is like an employee and who's not an employee of an organization. So the idea is creating an organizational model that creates a safe space for collaboration amongst organizations which might consider themselves to be competitors in a different sphere. So clients, so right now, like our consulting clients, some of their full-time employees join Quorum One, right? And they're members, you have to lean into all those potential conflicts of interest. You can't pretend like they don't exist, but
No, I guess
yeah.
my question was, so I'm just going to take our organization as an example.
Yep.
Sorry, I should have my own, was just, we already have an internal structure.
Yep.
But I love all of this.
Yeah.
So we have to make internal changes. That was it, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I was
So
asking about internal changes to my own organization if we joined.
So I think the idea is that the Quorum model itself is just a toolbox, and you can pick and choose one tool, right? You're like, ooh, the work stream looks real fun. Let's try that out. And maybe over time, and then provide feedback back to the community, right? And like throw tools back in the box for other people.
Hi, Hank. I really enjoyed your presentation. Is Quorum One incorporated as a worker-owned cooperative or a multi-stakeholder cooperative?
It is not, and that was a purposeful decision with the advice of co-op lawyers who said, for the love of all that is good and holy in the world, don't become a co-op, at least not based upon California or US co-op law. My understanding is there's some beautiful structures, legal structures in France that are pretty awesome that I want to learn more about. So we are an LLC with a cooperative operating model. So we get a lot of the benefits and protections that you would get as a corporation with a lot more freedom to create a cooperative governance model with like less restrictions that were sort of designed for utility districts and banks.
So plus one to that, because in the UK you can't set up a co-op. So we had to set up so I'm a member of We Are Open Co-op, set up almost 7 years ago. You can't set up a co-op in the UK. You set up a company limited by guarantee and put the articles of incorporation, which are linked to the international principles of corporation. That's the way that you do it. So any organization can be a co-op, really. It's the way that you decide to have equity, etc. Yeah. I'm also very jealous that you can have a TLD that has your surname, Hank.Holiday. But I wanted to ask some practical questions. So we use sociocracy within not only our co-op, but our network of co-ops. And we've talked about this when we were in Colorado, right? So there's 50 co-ops who are part of our network of co-ops. And Quorum One will be amazing for this, because one of the things we find difficult to do is to work together, harmony around day rates, and just all of that stuff, and who's going to deal with the admin and this and that. So I wanted you to go back to the work stream thing, really, because the way that you presented it there was almost like GitHub issues with financial bonuses. And I wondered whether you could just quickly go through that, if that's all right.
I mean, I think I'm out of time, right, Serge? Yeah.
2 minutes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, the work stream is kind of our most fun project that we're working on right now. It is so the high level is that you have these different things called streams. Anybody can create a stream. When they so we start off with one stream called the general request stream, the general rec stream, right? And everybody, that's like, and to be the runner badge, to be able to run recs through the general rec stream, that's like the main badge you need to use the entire system. And then anybody who gets the stream creator badge can create their own stream. And then they create a stream by creating like a runner badge and an organizer badge for that stream. And that's it. They create those two things. And it might be a stream to send out NDAs. It might be a stream to process a bug report. It could be anything. It could be literally.
Can those badges be revoked?
Yes, they can. They can also be versioned and updated. And you can say, that this is a mandatory update and everybody has 15 days to get the latest version. Otherwise, their badge will go stale and then they'll lose those administrative permissions. But the key thing is that the recs can be put in. Every member has a budget of how many Q credits per month they can add as bounties to the different recs. And as people notice, oh, like there's a lot of recs going into the general rec stream that kind of are the same, then somebody can go take the initiative, create a new stream, or with a group of people, create a new stream for a particular type of rec. And then there's organizers that can kind of move recs between streams because users aren't going to necessarily understand it. So it's very organic, very kind of bottom up. Okay.
Thank you very much, Hank.
Thanks, everyone.